Hello and welcome to section 4.2 of our Bridges Geometry class. Today we're going to continue our compass and straight edge constructions with a couple of constructions that involve angles. I think it's a little more fun than dealing with the segments, but a little bit more stressful too. The steps are a little bit more involved. But let's jump right into it. Try to not make this take as long as the last one did. I won't talk quite as much. Okay, I probably will, but I'll do my best. One thing that I want to reinforce, yesterday when we were doing the copying a segment, the first thing we really had to do, and I know it's not in the instructions, but the first thing we had to do is have a starting point. Okay, I remembered it in the instructions on this one. I want to have a starting array to make an angle. An angle is made up, and this picture isn't really right, but an angle is made up of two rays. So I want to get one to start with for my new angle. And I'm going to kind of adjust it a little bit, not that I necessarily need to. Actually, I'm going to make a straighter line than that, otherwise it's going to mess things up. So I'm going to just, I don't know what I want to say, kind of reflect, to use some old vocabulary, a little bit of a reflection and translation. I'm going to move it around just a little bit. My plan is to make this angle kind of come this way. So you can kind of tell what we're doing. Because it's something that we can do. We don't have to just copy it. And if you notice what I did yesterday when we copied a line segment, even though that's kind of a boring thing to copy, I made sure, one of them was straight horizontal. I made sure not to make the other one horizontal, just to have a little bit of fun with it, I guess. So my plan is to, make it come down this way. Sort of pointing the opposite direction of the one that we have. I'm going to kind of follow the same structure as I did yesterday. I'm going to go through it once, kind of following the directions, but more looking at how we would do it in general, and if I do everything with circles, what would it look like? And I want to take a look at that. So let's just go through it, and like I said, I'm going to kind of follow the directions. I might vary from them a little bit, mainly by the idea of, like, when I say an arc, I'm actually going to do a circle. And then again, we'll kind of highlight the parts of the circle that we need so that you have a better idea when you go to do it without drawing full circles. So it says here that I want to swing an arc from B touching both sides of the angle. I'm going to do that with an actual circle. So I'm going to draw a circle centered at B. Sorry, my throat's a little dry. So I've got a circle at B. It says to make a similar arc in your proposed angle DEF. I'm just going to make that same circle in the location that I'm going to put my new angle. Now, I will say when it comes to a lot of these, don't be afraid to write over my instructions, okay? You're going to have a lot of things that you do in these compass and ruler things where, it's going to take a mark to, you're going to have to draw something like up here. That's okay. Do it. It'll work, okay? Most of the time you need to, so I'd rather you get it done than say, well, I didn't want to draw on what you did. That's ridiculous. Don't say that. Just draw the dang thing. The next one here says to measure the arc or the ray arc intersections. And what I really want to do there is I want to measure the opening of the angle. I'm going to do that by placing the anchor point of my compass on this intersection here. Let me make it a little bit more, pop a little bit more. Okay, I want it to be there. And then the pencil end, I want it to be just right there. So I do have to adjust it a little bit. And so here I would say that I'm measuring the opening of the angle. I'm trying to see how open this angle is. Okay. And then it says I want to swing that same arc in DEF to draw intersecting arcs. That's kind of a tough way to say whatever I was trying to say. But I want to go to, keep in mind this was like a black and blue intersection that I lined both these up with. I want to go to a black and blue intersection here. And I'm going to put the anchor of my compass on that point right there. And I'm going to, my hand's in the way. And I'm going to draw a circle around that point. Try to get as close as I can to it. Okay. And then the last thing it says is use a straight edge to draw ray EF. So I didn't put a whole lot of points on here to begin with. This is point E. This would be point D right here. And I'm trying to figure out where F has to be. And it's going to be through the vertex E and through the intersection of those two circles. So it's going to be right through here. And if you believe me or not, I think they look pretty good. Those two angles are close enough to being congruent that I'm okay with it. They are congruent. By what we did, we made angles that were congruent. We copied this angle right down here to this spot up here. And I guess to round it all off, sure, we'd probably have to put point F on there somewhere to make that angle DEF. Now, let's look at a couple things. Let's look at some stuff that I needed. Right? What did I need out of this that maybe I don't have to draw full circles everywhere? I needed this point right here. So I needed these two circles to intersect. So I really needed that spot. Where did I get, where did I get something like that? I got the red circle from these two red marks and opening the compass to that width. So I need to be able to measure that as well. And then the other thing that I needed to measure that angle was I needed the blue circle that touched both of these rays. So I needed this much of that blue circle on both the where I was copying it and where I copied it from. So let's see if we can accomplish the same thing by going back and doing it just with those marks and see what that kind of looks like. I know this takes time and really nothing that different. I'm gonna change it just a little bit so it doesn't look like the same thing. So I'm just gonna, and again, this is more of a minimalist idea. I'm trying to not have to draw full circles everywhere. Trying to just draw smaller pieces. So I want that arc, and I want a similar one up here. Now, most of the time I'd say this one is a little bit bigger than it has to be, because I'd rather it be too big than not big enough. Okay? I know that I want to make this angle, and I know I want to make it come down this way, but I need to make sure it's at least big enough, that it covers enough of a distance. Because here in a second, I'm going to move my compass, and it matters that those two blue arcs are the same same width. Let's say same blue, like the color mattered. Let's go ahead and look here. So I'm trying to be very precise. Maybe it's a bad thing a little bit. I'm going to say that's pretty dang good as far as measuring from this spot to that spot. Okay, now I just want to copy that opening anchored at this intersection and somewhere down here. So I am going to move it over a little bit. So I'm going to be anchored right there, and I want those two to intersect. As long as they intersect, I should be good. Yeah, so they intersect right there. And so that ray is the one that we need. And sure, I could get a protractor out. We could measure them, but they're close enough and all the steps are done correctly that they're congruent. Let's look at the next one. So then I would say that copying an angle, what we just did, is actually harder than what we're going to do right now. Right now we want to bisect an angle, which means cut it in half. In the grand scheme of things, a lot of it's going to start out the same. I kind of hate it when that happens, but there's really no way around it. The beauty is I don't have to go anywhere. I'm just trying to cut this angle in half. And so I'm just going to leave it there, and I'm going to do my best to cut it in half. Let's start off first with full circles, and then see what we need to do after that. So it says the exact same start. Except for start with a new ray, a destination for it. But swing an arc that intersects both sides of the angle. I just did that with a circle. Okay. Now, we've kind of seen this idea before that I need to open it to over halfway through the angle. And I think this works out pretty well. I would say that that's over halfway from here to here. As long as it's over halfway, it's good. There's no other requirements. So I'm going to make a circle. And I'm going to do that from both of the blue and black intersections. So there's another blue-black intersection right about there. Yeah, that's close enough. And I'll draw another circle. Now, I know it's a little bit hectic. It's a little busy. So we'll try to cut down on that. But we have everything we need to finish this right now. Okay. And that is that I have this point. And a ray that comes from B and goes through that point is going to cut this angle in half. So that ray right there cuts that angle in half. So not too bad. So let's back up and just check with ourselves what we need. And then hopefully we can get rid of some of the busyness on here. So to make that ray, I needed this point right here, this kind of turquoise point. To make that turquoise point, it was the intersection of this and this that came from the over halfway measurement and drawn it in. And the thing about those over halfway measurements is that they started at these points right here where the blue and the black intersect. So I'm just going to say I need this whole thing. It feels a little bit nicer if I know that I have that whole piece right there. Okay. So let's see what that might look like. And so whenever I'm doing this, I would probably consider this probably a better or a more common answer. It's what I would typically see people do when they're actually giving me the answer. Because it's a little bit less to do. It's not as busy. Most people are kind of happy when there's not as much ugliness going on. Okay, so I need that much of the arc, that much of that circle. I'm going to open it to over halfway, and from that arc and ray intersection, so now it's yellow, whatever kind of yellow that is, and black. And I'm open to over halfway. I'm way over halfway, mind you. I would say halfway through this angle would be somewhere close to that. And so I do agree that I'm way over halfway. If you feel like you want to be closer, okay. Kind of as a rule of thumb, the farther you are above halfway, if I was way out here, that just means that my two arcs are going to intersect way out there. If I'm closer, then my arcs might intersect right there. If I'm too small, my arcs won't intersect. Let me show you what that looks like just real quick. If I choose this size, which is not over halfway, my two arcs, and in fact I just drew them as circles, they don't intersect. So I can't tell where they intersect. So that's why we say it has to be over halfway. Okay. So let's open it over halfway. Again, it doesn't matter how much. And I just want to make my two arcs in here that will hopefully intersect. Okay, so there's a pretty realistic problem. I just moved the compass on accident, and that's okay. I would never try to go back and match a previous compass setting. I'm just going to back up, pretend like it didn't happen. Now, of course, I could find it again, but I'm going to pretend like it didn't happen, and I'm just going to start at least that part over again, the part that I needed that compass setting. It's just a thing. It's going to happen. You're going to accidentally mess up the compass. It'll be okay. Just take a couple steps back and try it again. So the angle bisector is going to go through that intersection, and it's right there. And again, we could, now I'll say, helps if I hit the vertex really well, but we could get a compass out and check these two. I'm not that concerned with it. The marks are there. Looks good. That is cutting an angle in half. Okay. So get those practice problems done on the back. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you in class.